We opened our gathering this morning with the great Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra, a great song of the Dharma, the great song of form dissolving into emptiness, emptiness dissolving into form, form and emptiness, the great matter, the great path for us to embody, realize, wake up to, fully, honestly and completely in this life. It's no accident that the great Prajna Paramita is called great. This is not a word used lightly in the tradition. Whenever you see this word great appear in front of something, opening the door to something on this path, be very interested. It is a wide, wide open door indeed. And it also struck me reciting the great Prajna Paramita Sutra this morning that one of the reasons this is so great is that this is not any kind of private song being sung. You may notice that Avalokiteshvara is the one practicing deep Prajna Paramita. This is the bodhisattva of compassion, him or herself. And notice that the bounds of this self immediately, within the opening phrase, overflow into genuine compassion for Shariputra. This song is a dialogue. This song is a shared song. Avalokitesvara cannot but share this song of the way with a fellow traveller, with a companion in this life. That's what makes this great. So sitting here together, just assembling as we are here online, we are already overflowing the banks, if you like, of a small, isolated self. Of a self that wants to protectively claim that I am in here, you are out there. When we sit in Zazen, can we be so sure? Is not the great open way pointing to something much more interesting, much wider and deeper in, much more intimate, if you like? And I want to explore, examine, play with this great practice that we are, after all, here to share by taking up a koan case from the record of Jiaozhou. Jiaozhou, as many of you will know here, was one of the great, great old teachers of the 8th, 9th century in China. A teacher that another great teacher, Dogen, could only sigh about and to say, "Oh, the old Buddha, Jiaozhou." Well, once a monk approached old Jiaozhou, when he would have been very old. He lived and was teaching in his prime between the years of 100 and 120. Once a monk came to old Jiaozhou and asked, "Who is a person of great practice?" Very interesting question. Who is a person of great practice? Perhaps you can hear an edge in this monk's question along the lines of, am I a person of great practice? Or is there somebody who is that I can go and have a look at, that I can model myself on? And Jiaozhou makes a very interesting move. He says the head monk of this temple is. This may look like a straightforward answer, like go and have a look at the highest ranking person in this temple. And there would have been a head monk at that temple. But what a small move that would actually be. After all, Zhao was somebody who has realized thoroughly, right down to his marrow, that there is no rank. At the deepest level, we are all true persons of no rank. So what's this monk to do with this strange invitation the head monk of this temple is? Well, I imagine that Zhao has met this monk's desire, if you like, or yearning or agitation directly. I can see this monk thinking, right, so the head monk of this temple is a person of great practice. I better go and have a look at them. I better go and have a close look at them. And then imagine this monk doing exactly that, moving off into the rest of his day, keeping an eye out for this head monk. There he is. He's over there. Ooh, what's he doing? This monk almost becomes a stalker of the head monk, watching every single move that he does, whether the head monk is conducting a ceremony or a ritual or coordinating affairs on the temple grounds. Every single move is scrutinized by this monk. But happily, I think it's easy to imagine as well, this monk may start to notice other things about this head monk, not just the important, scare quote, things that the head monk is doing, but the normal things that this head monk is doing. Perhaps this monk notices that the head monk, when he wipes down the bench, doesn't completely wipe down the bench after lunch. Perhaps the head monk doesn't always clean the toilet after he's finished. Perhaps the head monk accidentally burped while he was walking in Kynan around the dojo during one of the important afternoon rounds of Zazen. Perhaps the monk starts to realize this head monk is a normal human being. And then this question of who is a person of great practice starts to accumulate more question marks. If this head monk is not perfect in some way, not somehow better or higher, or just somehow separated from all that is going on, what is great practice? What is great practice? Who is this great monk? And then perhaps even deeper, the monk might even begin to ask, well then, who am I? This great question of who, which is a wide open crater for all of us to fall deeply into, this question of who? Who is this? Who is this really? And when we really take this question to heart, is there any separation between the who of this head monk and the who of this person? Does this head monk and this monk, could it possibly be that they meet in the very heart of this who? I also love that as I imagine this monk stalking the head monk, I imagine that he's had to really follow him all the way through and around the temple grounds, possibly even beyond the temple walls. After all, Zhao's temple was famously very small. There were not a lot of people there assembled together to share in Zhao's teaching. The walls of that temple would have been very porous. So perhaps this monk has watched the head monk interact not just with every single person in the immediate sangha there, but with the people of the village and the town. Perhaps this head monk has seen that this who of who am I and who is this head monk really is who is anyone Who are these people that walk around this place? Perhaps you can even hear now that this who starts to really bring to the fore the question of what is relationship? If we meet in this who, then perhaps this who is not about any single particular isolated human being, but about relationship itself. And then perhaps you could even hear that if we take this all the way home, then this who is the person of great practice. This who of not finally needing to know or define or to pigeonhole or to reduce any single particular person or thing to a definition, to a fixed state. Rather, this who is wide open with the immediate possibility of just what is happening. How freeing that is, how generous to the world as we find it. Not as we might like it to be, not as we might hope it to be for ourselves, but as it is. On another occasion, I should say, another monk approached Zhao Zhou with a related kind of question. This time, the monk asked Zhao Zhou, "What is your great mind?" And the master said, "It's neither big nor small." And the monk said, well, that's your great mind then, isn't it? And the master said, if there's one hair's breadth of thought about it such as that, for 10,000 kalpas, it would not be so. Very interesting exchange again. What is your great mind? A fundamental question for us all to touch, for us all to live. What is our great mind? And the master says it's neither big nor small. Can you hear how great that is? Neither big nor small. What size is your mind? What size is your mind? But this monk rather likes this. He almost takes it conceptually. Your mind, it's neither great nor small. That's what the great mind is then, isn't it? But Zhao Zhou can only shake his head and say, if there's a single thought about the great mind like that, for 10,000 kalpas it would not be so. For eternity it would not be so. To know something about this ever unfolding mind, to try and capture this mind in some sort of possessive way, is to lose it. At the deepest level, of course, we cannot lose this great mind. We are, of course, moving in it, swimming in it, moving as it, with every single breath, with every single act, with every single turn of our lives. But the human condition is such that we can miss that. We can miss it. And we miss it whenever we have big or small thoughts about it. So, what then is it like to actually embody this great mind? This great mind that we cannot actually escape from, but we can wake up to. What's it like to be, if you like, mature in this mind? Well, let's take up another case from the Koan collection. This one comes from the Book of Serenity. And this case involves, it's almost like another head monk, an attendant monk, who we'll get to know him a little bit in this exchange. Somebody who is perhaps looking to be great in a small way, meeting his teacher, the old Deshan, another magnificent teacher in our tradition. So here's the case, and listen in for the characters and the teaching that is being offered here, particularly by Deshan. So the attendant, or head monk, is the attendant here, attendant Kyo, a very, if you like, privileged position in this monastery. Attendant Kyo asked Deshan, "Where have all the ancestral teachers gone?" Deshan said, "What? What?" Attendant Kyo said, "The imperial orders were for a fine horse, but out comes a lame tortoise." Deshan let it rest. The next day Deshan came forth from his bath, and Attendant Kyo passed him tea. All of a sudden, Deshan gently patted his back. Attendant Kyo said, "The old man has finally had a glimpse." Deshan let it rest. That's the case. A very quiet case. A very quiet case that nevertheless points to some fundamental aspects of embodying great practice. So I'll step through it lightly, not to unpack it in incredible detail, but just to give you a little bit more of a sense of the little drama that is being played out here. So this opening question of the attendants, where have all the ancestral teachers gone? This, I hope you can hear, is not really an innocent question. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to this teacher. Where have all the ancestral teachers gone? It's a little bit like saying, "You, Deshan, my teacher, you are supposed to be an ancestral teacher. Show me yourself. Show me your great practice. Show me how magnificent you are, because I believe I can recognize it. I believe I am someone too in this lineage of great personages." But it's lovely, Deshan, who would have been very old, just says, "What? What?" Attendant Kyo says, "The imperial orders were for a fine horse, but out comes a lame tortoise." A very dismissive statement. I hope you can perhaps even hear how this attendant monk has completely missed the generosity, openness, directness, humanity, shared life of what? What? Is there anything missing from this what? What? Deshan let it rest. What a beautiful, mature move. Deshan does not get entangled here in this drama of the attendants. He lets it rest. And the next day, we're told, Deshan came forth from his bath. I love these. There are quite a few cases in the tradition where these old teachers are having baths. It's a beautiful image. I love that they're sort of spending their time in austere practice and then hot bath. How joyous. What a beautiful thing. Hot bath. I can smell the steam. I can feel the dampness of that room. So Deshan comes forth from this bath, and the attendant, I think just spontaneously in his role, passes his teacher a cup of tea. And all of a sudden, Deshan, the teacher, spontaneously again pats the attendant's back, just gently pats his back. "Thank you. Lovely. Just what I feel like after a bath." But the attendant doesn't see this. The attendant is still holding on to this exchange from the day before. He thinks this pat on the back is actually something special. And he says, "Oh, The old man has finally had a glimpse. A glimpse of what? A glimpse of the attendant's own version of greatness, own claim to some kind of insight or something special, something almost fancy, something superior perhaps. How small to be so fixated on something special and superior like that. And once again, Deshan, let it rest. I hope you can feel again how mature this letting it rest is. This is not a passive move. This is not a move of avoiding the complexity here. There's something very active in this letting it rest too. It actually opens the question up wide, opens the who up wider for this attendant to really fall into. If Deshan does not acknowledge nor refute nor push this attendant monk away, perhaps then there is a chance. Perhaps then there is room for this attendant to mature himself, to grow even more wider himself. It's important to be able to let this matter rest, not in this passive way, but in this active way. Think of the complexity of the situation that we find ourselves in globally right now. Now, it would be very small indeed to say that we should just let the matter of Russia's invasion of Ukraine rest as if it had nothing to do with us. But the larger question is, can we let it rest in our hearts? Can we let it rest right down into the depths of our belly? Don't believe for a moment that Deshan wasn't pained by the smallness, if you like, of this attendant Kyo. That is a painful thing for a teacher to see. But he lets it rest. He lets it rest right into his bowels. And he lets that discomfort, that pain, if you like, do its work. In Zazen, we open ourselves up to exactly this kind of discomfort. We let the matter rest right in the completeness of our being. I remember the poet Anna Sphere saying that a poet must be as sensitive as an aching tooth. That's our practice. When we sit in Zazen, we must be as sensitive as an aching tooth. And how do we have the holding power for that? Well, because we let that ache rest in us, as us, not pushing it away, not taking it on board as if we know it and can finally explain it away. Any situation like the turmoil that we are experiencing internationally right now is not for any one person to solve. Remember the spirit of this who that we share. Who is a person of great practice? This is an invitation to see how completely this must be experienced and taken in, yes, by each one of us, but with no separation between us. This is letting the matter rest. And when we let that pain in, then we can begin to see and experience some of the transformational power of this practice. Transformational power that is not dictated from on high, but is discovered in this network of who, this network of me and you, of this and of all of us being together. And I was very interested to read a number of exchanges from poets and intellectuals and writers and musicians, artists in Russia. People agonized by Putin's move. People traumatized by the fact that in their name, these horrific acts are being conducted. And I was particularly struck by this one poet whom I'm not familiar with, but I just read this comment of hers. Her name was Evgenia Veslian, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that at all correctly. But letting the matter rest of all this in her own heart, this is what she says. Everything needs to change. We need new forms of living. Everything old has discredited itself and is ethically dubious. All these cultural forms are not aimed at enlightening people and not aimed at communicating with the public, but at creating a semi-public milieu of insiders, elite, closed, growing like a snowball. This cannot continue anymore. We need other forms of living and acting. I like that she touches on the perniciousness of the insider, whether it's the head monk or the attendant or the oligarchy. The perniciousness of those who insulate or isolate or restrict themselves in a way. This cruels what we know in our hearts to be a shared life. To reclaim the ground of shared life is going to take some very sincere and active shared living. Maybe activism, and yet it may also be a telephone call with a friend. It may even simply be a gathering such as this online to re-establish what it means to be with one another. This is not some sort of dream of being with one another. It's waking up to the fact of how thoroughly interwoven we actually are. Perhaps I'll finish with one last case, and then there'll be time, I hope, at the end where we can explore some of this together, and I'll reiterate some of the stories, cases that I've touched on so far. But I can't resist sharing this case with you, which actually comes from the Record of Empty Hall, another collection of important Zen koans. This particular case involves an old teacher again. I seem to be fond of these old teachers this time. But it also involves a military official. Not something that you encounter very commonly in the tradition. A military official perhaps stepping into a dojo, a setting such as this. Imagine the military official coming to gather with us this morning. That would be interesting. That would be an interesting thing to explore. Well, here we have exactly that scenario. It's case number 8 from that collection, and it goes like this. A military official asked national teacher Zhang, when the teacher lived on White Cliff Mountain, how did you cultivate practice? The teacher called a boy, then rubbed the top of this boy's head, saying, calm, calm. Just say calm, calm. Passing through, just say passing through. Afterwards, do not deceive people. The military official had no words. What an interesting exchange here, this dialogue between one kind of power, military power, the monopoly on violence, if you like, and I don't even like to call it spiritual power. Both of those words do not even come close to what is actually being on offer here. But this question of the military officials, when the teacher lived on Whitecliff Mountain, how did you cultivate practice? I can hear a sense of this military official wanting to know, what kind of intense training did you do? There's almost a kind of militaristic edge to this. What kind of austerities did you have to endure in order to become this great teacher that apparently you are? But notice then how this old teacher just makes the most beautiful lateral, if you like, move, or even straight move, right through that kind of hopefulness of the military officials. He calls over a young boy, an innocent, a young monk who would have been in that monastery. Just calls him over, come here. And then he pats this young boy's head, just sort of circling on top of the head. And just says, calm, calm. Just say calm. Passing through, passing through. Just say passing through. Afterwards, do not deceive people. Can you hear both how he lets the matter rest? He's actually conjuring or embodying, showing the depth of this calm and the way that this calm is discovered in care for one another, not in protecting borders, but in reaching right across the border of self and other and patting that head. Calm, calm, just say calm, passing through, just say passing through. What, after all, is not passing through? Everything is passing through you, passing through me, passing through as this who, as this great question into what is this? Who am I? To make those moves, to wake up to this, to step back into this who, comes, or brings with it, I should say, a demand. And that demand is, do not deceive people. This is no flippant remark. Do not deceive people. What a challenging practice this is. And yet, if we are to take care, if we are to truly admit passing through, then we take up the way of not deceiving people. Not deceiving this who. So much of this brings to the fore what is often shared in Zen circles. It's almost a cliche, and yet it has so much wisdom in it, I can't resist bringing it into the room right now, which is the old saying that there is no way to peace. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. We are living at a time of great upset and upheaval. Peace is not something to be achieved in the future. Peace is to be achieved with every single move we make that can touch the top of that head, knowing that that head of that young boy is your very own head, and that calm and that passing through is your very own self, a self that has no bounds, a self that is great practice itself. So I'll leave it there, but before we perhaps move into a short walk, I'm not sure, Ross, what you'd like to do with the time remaining, I will just sound these cases back into the space here, just so that we can take up any aspect of them and the relationship between these cases, and just see what questions, observations, responses, feelings arise from this little cocktail of koan cases. So I'll give them to you one more time. The first one, of course, was, who is a person of great practice? Zhao said, the head monk of this temple is. And then a monk asked, what is your great mind? The master said, it's neither big nor small. The monk said, that's your great mind, isn't it? And the master said, if there's one hair's breadth of thought about it, such as that, for 10,000 kalpas it would not be so. And then I won't read through those complete longer cases, but I will just remind you of Deshan letting the matter rest. Letting the matter rest. And also this national teacher Zhong, who calls this boy over, calm, calm, passing through, passing through. Afterwards, do not deceive people. Okay. Thanks for gathering together.